This is Greg Hansen's Video Notebook, brought to you by Albertsons. I'm Star Sports Editor Ryan Finley here with Greg Hansen, and we are talking Pac-12 football. Pac-12 Media Days this week, Greg, and I know that you've submitted your ballot. We talked about the Pac-12 South in our last episode. Now let's talk about the North. This is where the biggest, baddest teams in the league are playing right now. You've got Oregon, always good, always fast, always exciting. You have Stanford, never fast, never exciting, but plotting and as efficient a program as there is. You've got a rising Washington team. Washington State's pretty good. How does this division shape up to you heading into the season?
I actually think the North might be the best this year. I do like the LA schools and the Arizona schools, but I mean, Oregon's got players. Yeah. They've got players like Alabama has players. And what you said about Stanford summed it up so perfectly. Yeah. They don't look like they should be good, but they are really good. Yeah,
and they're getting the players. I mean, to me, we talked in our last episode, Greg, about whether USC still has all the best offensive linemen, defensive linemen. I think that you've started to see the momentum in terms of the big uglies shift towards Stanford a little bit. Stanford is getting the Andrews Peets of the world. I mean, they're getting the five-star big bad offensive linemen, and they play like it. They play like they have the best offensive line in the league.
And even going back into the 80s, about every 4 years Stanford would do that. They would have the best offensive line in the league, but now they do it consistently.
We talk about quarterbacks. Certainly the Pac-12 is a quarterbacks league, unlike maybe any other league in the country. You talk about Marcus Mariota, he's really good. Kevin Hogan at Stanford's pretty good. I think one player who people sleep on a little bit is Sean Mannion at Oregon State.
Oh, he was outstanding last year.
Where do you see them going this year? I mean, it seems like they always overachieve, but can they take that next step with the big quarterback?
I think Oregon State is a 7-5 team. Okay. I just don't think they have the rest of the players to carry it off. They've always got 2 or 3 really top NBA prospects, NFL
prospects or NBA prospects. Yeah.
But I like Washington State as good or better than Oregon State. I like Mike Leach. What he did at Texas Tech is off the charts. Right. And I think he can do close to the same thing at Washington State. I mean, last year they were tough. Right. In his second year.
Wow, and you talk about recruiting too. I mean, Pullman is Paris compared to Lubbock, Texas.
Yes.
I mean, he's proven throughout the years that he can recruit people to maybe undesirable situations. He's proven that he can get a quarterback, which is as important as anything in this league. And I think in terms of the way they play, they are really, really, really fun to watch. I mean, look no further than last year's New Mexico Bowl. Yeah. Was it a disaster? Yeah, kind of. But gosh, it was exciting. And if you're a kid who's choosing between San Diego State and Utah State and Washington State, suddenly you want to go play kind of in that circus atmosphere, don't you?
And, last year they beat USC at USC. Wasn't one of the best Trojan teams ever, obviously, but Washington State probably had 2 guys who could have started for USC. Right. That, to me, was the signal that they're coming. Right. And then they get in the bowl game. They clock Arizona here. Right. Washington State, don't overlook them.
This is Greg Hansen's Video Notebook, brought to you by Albertsons. Ryan Finley here with Greg Hansen. Greg, let's talk about Sonny Dykes in Cal. It's been a bad first year for him. Cal Athletic Director Sandy Barber was basically asked to resign or be reassigned. This is a man who inexplicably in year 2 is on the absolute hot seat. What does he have to do to keep his job?
I think he has to be competitive more than win. I mean, he won 1 game last year. Obviously, he's going to have to win 4 or 5 this year. But if they're not competitive, if they looked as soft as they were last year, I could see a new athletic director making a change. But Cal has no money. No money. Can they buy him and his staff out already? They're paying off their old defensive coordinator $800,000 this year. They already fired him.
Wow.
So that's a mess.
Was that the guy who used to be with the Cardinals?
Yes.
Wow.
No, it wasn't Clancy Pendergrass.
Okay.
No, it was another guy. The guy he handpicked to go to Cal. So he brought in a coordinator from Cincinnati. They're under the gun Colorado's not under the gun. Right. Cal is under the gun.
And yet, you would argue that Colorado is historically a much better football school than Cal, wouldn't you?
Only in the last 10 years.
Okay.
Because in the 80s and 90s, except for a 2 or 3 year period when Bruce Snyder had it going at Cal, Cal was awful.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying Colorado is a better football school than Cal.
Yes. And now Cal's back at stage 1. Yeah.
It's crazy. Greg, we traveled together for years covering the Pac-12, and tell me if you disagree here. to me, the Cal trip was always kind of the most underwhelming. The place was always sort of half full. There were always 6 better things to do in the Bay Area that day. They were hardly ever any good. They seemed to have good individual players, but were never as good as kind of the sum of their parts.
It's like Oakland is the city that says there's no there. To me, it's Cal football. There's no there.
Right. It must be a tough job for Sonny Dykes, who is a good man and a hard worker, and somebody who probably has stepped into a job that is going to be challenging, if nothing else, for him.
When he took the job, I got excited because, as we both know, he's a really good guy.
Right. As good a guy as there is in college football.
And then as I watched him on the Pac-12 Network program, The Drive each week, I went, he's in big trouble.
Yeah.
And he is.
Yeah, because coaching changes are more about changing a culture, bringing in the right kinds of kids, and anything else than it is just bringing in your system and hoping it works. Mike Leach has changed the culture, changed everything there down to the uniforms. Sonny Dykes, it seems like, is still a couple of steps behind. For Greg Hansen, I'm Ryan Finley. This is Greg Hansen's Video Notebook, brought to you by Albertsons. We'll see you next time.